When I lived in Poland, I became acquainted with the paintings of Alicja and Maciej Urbaniak, who are well-known artists there. We became friends after they warmly welcomed me into their sunlit home studio near Krakow. During the 5 years I lived there, I had several opportunities to work with them and found them always to be delightful. All three of the Urbaniaks are accomplished artists. Alicja creates lively landscapes and still life paintings bursting in color. Maciej's paintings are figurative and provocative, often in the earthy colors of Tuscany. Their son, Roch, inspired by myths and legends, uses the language of magic realism to create intricate and elaborate paintings in the style of illustration. They have traveled widely and have had exhibitions internationally. Exhibitions even in Knoxville, Tennessee. In 2011, Roch had a solo show in the Pienków Gallery, and also that year, the artwork of the Urbaniaks could be seen in the Polish art collection of Victor Ash, former US ambassador to Poland, which was exhibited at UT's Downtown Gallery. Unfortunately, Alicja and Maciej are under the weather and unable to join us today. We send them our warmest wishes for a speedy recovery. However, their son Roch will be our narrator as he shares his family's story and artwork. Welcome, Roch.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be able to have this presentation for you all, and it's a big honor to be able to present art works of me and my parents. So if it's time for me now to speak, let me start with something that is important to understand who we are. Me, my mother Alicja, and my father Maciej. We are all from Poland, from Krakow, the old historical city that you can hopefully see on the screen share I'm doing right now. The city we come from is a city of art, city of artists, city that has the oldest Academy of Fine Arts in Poland and one of the oldest academies of fine arts in Europe. This is the building you can see right now, and this is the place that was an alma mater of both my parents and me. We have all graduated from the faculty of painting there, and a lot of things, we share very similar recollections as colleagues of my parents during their study times were then my teachers, as some of them stayed at the academy to teach new generations. This is my mother, Alicja, standing next to one of her biggest paintings. So most of the artworks I will present will not be as big, but this is the sizes that the paintings can achieve. Here's my father, Maciej, also in front of one of the biggest coral reefs he has ever painted. So as you will see, it's going to be quite important. The way of painting, especially my parents do, I work a bit differently. It's somewhat, it's possible to enlarge it or shrink according to your desire without losing the feeling and the technicalities of their way of painting. Here you got paintings that are more than like 1 by 2 meters. I don't know how much it is in inches, but there are also going to be paintings with a size of something like this, and I will notice this when we come to this. My parents are also quite fond of Polish traditions, so here you can see them wearing traditional regional clothes from Krakow. And this is our home near to Krakow in a village called Modlnica. In this house, my parents got their atelier where they work. And well, this is one of the benefits of being an artist who lives in a house where they have a workplace. You don't notice pandemic at all if you also turn off TV and stuff. But still, your life doesn't change that much, which really helps to keep focus on work and not get too depressed in this weird times. Also, my mother has a very beautiful garden she loves to attend, and they have cats. There used to be one cat, then a second one showed up, and then they found a stray third one. So it started from cat number 1 up to 3 cats that are now ruling the house. This is how the workshop of my parents looks like. They share the same space with one big table where they keep their paints for both of them. This is quite unusual because very often artists don't like to share the same space, not to mention the same materials. But for like more than 30 years, they're working as artists. It's been working pretty well so far for them, and it's quite unusual. But well, this is something that's really positive about the whole situation when 2 artists and well a couple can spend really like 99% of their time together, and it works. So yeah, I'm really impressed by that, and I hope that I will be able to have the same attitude toward people like they do. So yeah, that's how it looks like in front. You can see a bucket with brushes of my mother on the left and my father on the right. And here is a picture with Mr. Victor Roch from the time he visited my parents' home in Krakow. It was a really nice visit. So now allow me to end this screen sharing and proceed with another one. You can see my mother standing in front of the window in their workshop, and now we will take a closer look at what her art is about. Just like Perry mentioned, my mother usually copes with the theme of landscapes. But as you can see, the way she works is not very realistic. We can say it's more of a abstract and even cubical way of coping with the subject. There's a lot of abstract elements in her art. I hope you will be able to see the movement of my mouse, as for example, this central part of the painting I'm showing is quite abstract, and it's gonna be important to understand how my mother works, because at the beginning there cannot be a white spot on the canvas. At first she's like putting all the colors that were left on her palette from the previous paintings, and not to waste those little scoops of paint. She just randomly pours it on the canvas, just to cover all the area with some random color splashes, dots, stripes, whatever. Because after few times of doing like that, like this, there start to appear elements that she will later leave in the final painting, because all the rest you can see, like those brighter elements, the walls of the buildings or the roofs, those are added elements. So we can say that here, this fragment, from what I know about my mother's works, I suppose it was ready in the first 20 minutes of painting, because of those random placement of paint to create an abstract cover or background for the rest of the painting. And then a bit like sculpting, she's like cutting the elements she likes and covering the elements she's not too fond of, eventually to create a landscape like this. Sometimes it can bring recollections of rural area of Poland, or the mountains we have in Poland, like the Tatra Mountains. They're not too impressive or too big in scope and scale, but still they're very beautiful. And this is like a very typical landscape from there. A lot of sheep, a lot of sheep shepherds, and yeah, and animals usually appears on my mother paintings, although, as you can see, her main interest is in landscape. Animals do appear from time to time. Human figures almost never do. You know, that's her way. She's just not too interested in painting human figures, although sometimes she does, but it's like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 paintings during her whole career that I can recollect about this topic. But of course, we will have 1 or 2 here that I will present. Yes, another one showing a toy horse. As I have told you, the garden of my mother is a very big, is of great importance to her, and she loves to attend it. So flowers and vegetation is also a important topic in her art. There are also some technical, let's call it tricks that, well, I suppose every artist has his own very distinct way of painting. Like we all use brushes, but also everyone has something that is just his. And for example, my mother tries to combine, how to call it? It's not collage per se, but it's something a bit like a stamp. So, for example, sometimes she uses kitchen towels, because kitchen towels, as you can for sure know, sometimes have this strange little texture to it. Sometimes it's just abstract dots and stripes. Sometimes there are flowers or other things that if you put paint on it very gently and then you push it even more gently to the canvas, you can get this really nice abstract elements like here or like here, that or even here. Yeah, this is the one. I don't know if you can see it very well, but perhaps I will find it on another one and then point your attention towards. Yeah, this is like one of the more robust garden paintings my mother has painted recently. As you see, colors, she's not afraid of using strong colors. Some artists would frown upon using colors straight from the paint tube, but in my opinion, it's not necessary always to dwell in the little tiny aspects of mixing the colors to get the right tone that is 5% different from the other tone. No, in case of my mother, it's all about fun and joy, and like putting this more or less abstract, colorful pieces together to create something that we can recollect as either nature or animal or landscape. But it's sometimes like working with colorful puzzles or bits of confetti, like here. Still lifes, well, very typical motif in every artist portfolio. She also loves it very much, which is something that is very similar to my father's paintings, because although they don't share similar topics too often, still lifes are something that they do, and I'm sure you will be able to see some similarities in themes and even in some objects you will see that the very obvious difference in the way they paint. I hope I'm not moving too fast with them, but well, we have 3 artists to cover, and that's why I try not to dwell on one painting too long. At the end, perhaps I will be able to show one of them again if you would like to. Yeah, and here is one of the very unusual paintings of my mother, but that's how she paints nudes and well, her beloved cats. So again, as you can see, The general idea is quite similar. A lot of abstract background from which shape we can recognize emerges, with adding new layers of paint just in this area. I suppose this was a gift for my parents' friend for the wedding, I suppose. So that's why the wedding, I don't know the word, the thing the lady has on her head. And yeah, here it is. This painting is, again, I don't know how much it would be in inches, but it was something like that. Most of the paintings I have showed you recently are more or less 1 meter by 80 centimeters. So something like this, or more or less something like Perry has on the wall behind her. But small paintings, as you can see, can be painted using almost the same technique. Very abstract background from which she has carved the shapes of objects with brighter colors. And even here, if we watch closely, we can see some of those stamps-like effects using different kind of papers. And this is how my mother's paintings present together. I don't recall where this exposition was, but well, as every artist, they do prepare exhibitions from time to time, and that's how it looks when they are hanged together, close to each other, and framed. Great. So I suppose we can stop this screen sharing part of our meeting, and we will be able to move to another one of our family, to my father. Here he is. This is my dad. On his side of the table, on his side of the workshop. And this is one of the most typical paintings my father does. As Perry has said, a lot of inspirations from the south of Europe, Italy, Tuscany, especially in colors, but also the trees. My father is very fond of Italy, and that's why those are the topics he likes to paint or incorporate in his paintings in general, in way of either color of architecture that you will be able to see later. But of course, women are also a big part of my father art, as he is known to be a painter of nudes, and that's what he does most of the time. Sometimes combining it with a landscape, sometimes combining it with a still life. I suppose that this is a painting we can try to talk about the technicalities of my father a little bit more, although probably there's gonna be a better one with some close-ups. Anyway, as you can see, the way of the movement of the brush is totally different. My mother used a lot of paint on either her brush or painting knife, just putting it like there's no tomorrow. While my dad usually works with the technique that is called the dry brush. So as long as he has the drawing of the composition set in place, he starts to rub the paint with a dry brush. That means he takes some paint on the brush, he wipes off the excess, the amount that's just not important, that's too much. And when he has just a bit of this color on the edge of the brush, he starts rubbing it into the canvas, which creates these really soft transitions between colors and sometimes shapes, which is very distinct to my father, and this is like his trait. Gustav Klimt, I suppose you're all familiar with him. For sure, he's one of the artists that my father likes very much, and although he's not trying to copy his style, this combination of a bit ornamental fragments combined with very subtle and gentle representation of a naked body without any vulgarity or obscenity is what both Klimt did, and I suppose that's what is closest to my father and what he wants to tell with his art. But my father is also a narrator. He likes to create stories with his paintings, and that's something what is quite important, as you will see when we skip to my part of presentation, as he's the guy that taught me this. I'm a storyteller with my art, always like 100%, and there's these little anecdotes or stories that can be told by putting some unordinary objects into the painting. For example, a tiger, which immediately creates, a story. Here we got a reclining lady with a still life. This is just atmosphere. Here, bam, who knows what's going on? But for sure, there are stories to be told about this painting, and we will be able to see some paintings like this even more. This architecture right here is like, almost straight from the Renaissance Italian painters, from frescoes from Siena or Firenze Palazzo. We don't have any dog, although my father used to when he was a kid, so that's why dogs appear more often at his paintings than cats. Yeah, and here's a still life by my dad, like 100% still life, nothing more to it in terms of other topics. And if you can recall the still life of my mother, there were similar fruits, there were also grapes, there was watermelon, even similar bottles, because sometimes they take the bottle they have somewhere at their shelf with props and try to paint it and paint it. So the objects are similar, but the way of painting is totally different. As I told you, my father relies more on the subtle transitions of colors, more on this than on clashing them with strong contrast, like my mother. Coral reefs and this underwater life is also one of the trademarks of my father's paintings. You have seen one on this huge painting at the beginning of the presentation. This one is much smaller, and my father loves to swim, to dive, and every time he has an opportunity. And they do, because before pandemic they used to travel a lot, like around the world, different continents, different places. So this underwater life is something he has witnessed firsthand, and that's why it also appears in his art more often than not. Or pictures like this, which is almost like a postcard from India. I don't know if any one of you have been to Rajasthan, to Jaipur, the Pink City, as I recall. But this is a painting with Hava Mahal, the Atlas of the Winds. That's like the most important architecture trademark of Rajasthan. Also painted elephants, monkeys, tigers. This is like a postcard from the travel. Or Venice, I told you, Italy has a very important place in my father's art. Tuscany with cypress and some vineyards. Or Greece, which also appears from time to time. Interesting thing about artists in Poland, or at least in the group of artists we live together with, like not together with, but to get my meaning, artists tend to be loners. Like we don't need other people to work with. We of course need people to see what we have done. This is like the most important thing of our work. But during the process of painting, we prefer to be left alone, not bothered. But from time to time, there is a time like when all these loners feel need to get in a group and just maybe paint something not together on one canvas, but together in one space, and then just drink wine and talk about it, or I don't know, play cards, spend some time together. And this is something that happens quite a lot, and it's called artistic workshops or plein airs. It's quite popular in Poland for the past 10 years, as a lot of owners of hotels or tourist apartments or villas or whatever in quite interesting places, they invite artists for like this 2-week holidays, giving them, places to sleep, food, also materials to paint, etc., in exchange for one painting that is then left for the owners. The owner is gathering his own collection of contemporary Polish art, and artists has an opportunity to spend time together, because we don't do that quite often. I see from my perspective, I've graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts like 11 years ago, and already in my group of close friends, there are maybe 2 or 3 people from the art world. Like, we go separate ways, and it's very nice to be able to meet and talk with people. For example, sometimes those plein airs takes place abroad. This is a painting that my father has painted during their stay in Greece, Santorini. So that's also a kind of, let's say, a postcard from a trip. I like this painting a lot. As I told you, my father is a storyteller from time to time, but this attention to drawing and to general precision in drawing that can be seen in some of his paintings is something that that originates in quite an unusual place, because in comic books is something that is very important to me and to my art, and also my father was the one who taught me this. But also we can see this attention to the drawing detail in his art. So this is one of the paintings that presents it in a very strong manner. As you can see, what is very interesting is that my parents are working almost back to back for past 30 years, and still, although some of the topics are similar, they somehow manage to keep their separate ways. Sometimes there are aspects of my mother workshop and technical aspects of working that my father tries to implement to his. Sometimes it works other way around. That in the end, you know, those are more or less like experiments than something that stays for longer. And here, yeah, just take a look once again. Here is a painting that was probably 1 meter by 70 centimeters from what I can tell. And here is again something of that size, which means that they are both able to change the scale of what they're doing without losing the general feeling of how the paint and the brush is used. Also, a coral reef in a very shrunken size. It's a nice one. I haven't seen it for quite long. Yeah, and that I suppose is from the same exposition my mother paintings were displayed. I have showed you, and here are my dad's paintings. So you can see how they present on the wall in a gallery space next to each other. This is interesting because although watching this presentation, it's obvious, one can tell that the paintings are similar to each other. Well, they are, like, you know, Paul Cézanne has painted Mont Saint-Victoire like 1,000 times or something. So yeah, I don't think there's a need for an artist to paint something totally different every time. But even with this in our head, you can see that here that there is quite a strong difference between the paintings, both in atmosphere and topics they pick. Yes, and it's gonna be the end of screen sharing number 2. Now we're gonna move to Urbaniak painter number 3. That's me. So here I am sitting in my workshop. I used to paint at my parents' home, of course, but as long as two artists can coexist in one space for some time, it's impossible for free. That's why as soon as I was able to, I was very politely asked if, Roch, you're 25-year-old, could you please go and find your own place to work? Especially because I have a bit different day schedule, and my parents work during day. I prefer working in late hours, so it was just too hectic. Now it has changed a lot because I have a baby daughter that you know requires me to be more often at home than not. So I'm also trying to work in normal hours, that mean during day, but it used to be totally different. And so here I am in my workshop. And as I have introduced this aspect of my work, I'm a storyteller. Well, it's quite obvious because not only my paintings are painted in a way that I want everyone who sees my painting to create their own story in their head. Like I don't give you instruction of what you should think about this painting. I don't give you a short script of the story, who is flying in this balloon, or why this castle / manor is high up in the clouds. I want you to create your own story. I don't care if it is similar to mine, because it's gonna be your story, and your enjoyment from my art is more important to me than you buying 100% of my my vision, because you know I try to create a playground for both me and people who watch my art. maybe that's why I don't, you know, this is also something about my parents. I forgot to mention. We don't have our art at our homes. Like we used to joke about it when somebody asked us why we don't have any of our paintings at homes. We used to joke that haha, we can't afford our own art. But to be honest, it's like artists sometimes don't care about the painting as much as about the process of painting. I cannot tell you 100% that it's like that with my parents, but with me, the attention span I have on a painting is up to 2 weeks. This is the time when the story I'm creating is still in my head. This is the time I have greatest fun painting it. But after 2 weeks, which is usually the absolutely sufficient time to finish a painting, even most elaborate, well, I get bored a little. So when the painting is ready, I'm really happy when somebody decides to buy it and takes it home and enjoy the company of my art, because I know that not only I had great fun, but the paintings will live on and be important for someone. But for me, well, it's like, it was great meeting you. Now I have something new on the ice, which is even more interesting than you was 1 week ago. I know it sounds harsh, but well, that's the reality with me. Maybe just too many stories to be told that I don't have time to linger on one for too long. I have put here this painting because well, I also travel a lot. At first together with my parents. Then when I was older, I also started to travel to Asia with my backpack and stuff like that. Italy was, of course, on my itinerary, and I must admit that both Florence, Venice, Tuscany, Rome, there are few as photogenic places and as inspiring places around the world. So, of course, I also have tried this Venice topic, and I'm showing you how it works when done by me to compare with how my father painted it. So the inspirations for my art, as I have told you, are mostly from my travels, but I always try to, yeah, I will repeat myself, creating stories. So when I go to a place, be it India, Nepal, China, Japan, Knoxville, Tennessee, from which I have painted a really nice painting I like a lot from the Kate's Cove with some bears that I have seen when I was there. I always need to add this a bit of magical realism flavor to it for the sake of mine pleasure from painting the recollection of the trip. It's like let us suspend the disbelief and allow us to think that there was something more in the place we have been to. So if there's a legend about the dragon, or a legend about the enchanted lake full of mermaids, or whatever, let's not discard this thought. And when I'm painting something from recollection about a place, I try to incorporate the stories I have heard, create new. Well, what you're seeing here, for example, was a painting I've done just after returning from some mountain hiking in Switzerland. I know it's not too Swiss as long as the architecture is concerned, but still the mountains, the lakes, and the railways, rail bridges. That's how I created my memory of Switzerland. And here is my vision of Krakow. We have a wonderful story about the dragon that was slain by a little cobbler who has stuffed that sheep with with some sulfur, and then the dragon ate it and started drinking the water from the Vistula River until bam, he exploded. So yeah, the Krakow is a city of a dragon, and I painted it here. This is a painting that's quite important because I will talk about it a bit later, that you know, it was just natural that eventually I will write a book from those stories I already have in my head when painting. So this one is a painting I used as a cover for the second part of my book with stories for children. I will show it you later. There's a lot of things, a lot of paintings that I try to use in different ways. So as I told you, how to tell, I love when my painting lives on, but not necessarily on my wall or in my atelier. But that's why I really like when somebody wants to use my art in some not obvious ways. For example, some of my paintings have been used for puzzles. There's a company creating puzzles from California that got rights to use some of my paintings, and they created puzzles. Another company in Poland has asked me for rights for some paintings, and then they created a line of clothes with my painting as the graphics for t-shirts, and so on and so on. There are posters, there are art prints. Well, to be honest, this week even there's a company making beer in Poland, which is one of the most renowned and prized around the world company of craft beer in Europe, and one of top 10 in the world. And they have asked me if they could use one of my paintings on the can of their artistic series of beers. Well, I know the guy who's running the company. He's my friend from primary school, and well, he's doing great with his business. He has a great quality of the product. So yeah, I said yes. So even that, I have no problem with this as long as people enjoy my art, and I hope they do. I haven't seen a whale yet, but that's on my short list or my bucket list to do. So I'm painting them, but haven't seen one yet. As you can see, my way of painting is also quite distinctive from my parents. Of course, I must admit that if I have to say who was my most influential, who had the most influence on me as an artist, with all due respect to my teachers at the Academy of Fine Arts, I wouldn't mention any of them, but my parents. You know, it's quite obvious, and you cannot avoid it. If you are raised in a house of artists, you grow up among paints and among your parents' workshop. You just, you know, like a sponge. You soak with all of it. And even when at the Academy of Fine Arts somebody tells you to do something different or has some ideas about what you could do and how you could do, even if you try to listen, it's not as influential as, you know, seeing what my parents were doing. I hope that I managed to cross the line from mimicking them and found my own way of painting, although I will always admit that it all started with my parents and the way they work, and I was just, you know, cherry picking things that was most interesting for me. So of course it's most visible in the architecture, but the thing I try to do it is like add more shading and drawing into it. Maybe because of this comic aspect I told you. I also create comic books, and this is why this illustrative way of presenting things on the canvas is my way. Sometimes happy, sometimes a bit grim and dark. but always a story to be told. When we finish this part of presentation, I would like to show you something I hope you will find interesting. I have a video on YouTube that I have made recently for one fantasy art festival in Poland. They asked me to prepare a video about how my workshop looks like and how I work. Of course, I will not torment you with the full 15 minutes of it, but I will show you like 4 or 5 little pieces of it to show how I paint, how I use my brushes, and how my workshop looks like. My parents paint from imagination most of the time. They almost never use any picture or photo references. I do, because there are things I can imagine. I know how to paint the cluster of buildings. I know how to paint a rock. I don't need any help to it. But my God, I had no idea how to paint sea like this. So I was, like having a picture of the rough sea here and just trying to paint it as precise as possible, which was great fun, to be honest, because, let's try doing something new every time, and you never get bored. Yes, as I told you, some of my paintings are used for illustrations in other people's books. Sometimes they are used at the covers of other people's books. This one was used as a cover for Polish edition of one of H.P. Lovecraft horror books, although I didn't paint it as intended for Lovecraftian themes, but well, the publisher liked it so much they used it. We paint with acrylics, and this is quite interesting because, as you can see, both my parents' art and mine is quite vibrant with color. Acrylics, they have a tendency to, how it's in English, they lose the color or the strength of the color as soon as they dry. It's like 15, sometimes even up to 20% lost in vibrance, in this juiciness of the color. Sorry for talking about it this way around. I just forgot the word. And we managed to overcome it with the varnish, very, very, very specific kind of varnish that is based on some natural resins and other kind of minerals that are combined with tree resin. And when you put this layer of varnish on the painting and it finally dries, well, then it's beautifully glowing and the colors are alive. Again, I will show you how it looks like in this video. I have like this 20-second fragment of me varnishing one painting. And the thing we love about acrylics, both my parents and I, is that they dry just much, much quicker than oil paints. Oil paints are old technique, they are wonderful, they are very noble, but we work faster. And I would not imagine a situation that I would place, for example, like here, some thick piece of paint with my painting knife, because here when I put it, it was drying, let's say maybe 5 minutes. If I have done something like this with oil paints, it would take, I don't know, 3 days, 5 days, maybe more, maybe less, but we're talking about this amount of time. And during all this time, if I managed to even once, put my hand, unfortunate enough to, touch the paint and then move my hand somewhere else, oh my, it would be just terrible. So I cannot allow myself to have such spots on the painting that are just ticking bombs waiting for me to disturb them. That's why we use acrylics, and together with this varnish, the effects are absolutely enough for us and for people who enjoy our art, from what I know. I don't have a picture with me in scale, but this was one of the bigger paintings I have done. It was more or less similar in size to what I have shown you at the beginning with my parents standing next to their paintings. So I would be probably, I don't know, maybe like a bit taller than the height of this painting. It took me 2 months. I got really bored at the end. I told you 2 weeks is like the top of my attention span, but I'm quite happy with the effect. Here is a girl. I don't know, you can see this little figure riding a flying stingray, and it was painted as an illustration for one of the stories in my book. I will show you in a moment when I stop screen sharing, because I will show you via the live feed from the camera. Also, apart from traveling and searching for those inspirations in travels, I do love fables and mythology from all around the world. So, for example, here's a painting inspired by Norse mythology, and Mimir, the all-knowing god who was living in a well, or actually his head was living in this well, because why not? Apparently, the rest of Mimir was not important, and he was, giving the words of wisdom and advice to the Norse gods. So that's how I painted his well. Here you can see one of the pages from my comic book. I also try to paint it. Drawing is something I love, but I didn't master enough courage to draw a comic just using pencil or pens, but I will. I just feel much more comfortable and confident with acrylics. That's why I painted it. And apparently it paid off, because this comic won the main prize at the International Comic Book Festival in Poland, and then it was presented on a few other comic book festivals around the world. So that was nice, because I have always loved comics as a reader, but apparently winning a big competition opens you the world to be accepted into the comic book creator group, and some interesting other things about comic books and illustrations came after it. So it was good decision to spend so many hours on this comic book, and it was so tiring and so frustrating. I didn't know how to do it. I do it all the way around, like totally not how it is done by the book. But now when I look at it, I'm quite happy I didn't bail out and throw it in the garbage halfway through. Yeah, that's from another one. This one got the second prize of this comic book festival 2 years later. Yeah, and here are my 2 books with stories for kids. I just choose the paintings I like most, and I had something to tell about what's happening on the paintings. And although I told you that I like the situation when somebody creates their own story based on what they see in my art, I decided to write those books, and it was also quite nice, because apparently they became quite popular in Poland, and now I'm working on for the third one from this series. Papiernik is like the paperman. It's a guy who's collecting stories from all around the world. The paper birds are he's creating these origami paper birds. He then releases into the world, and when they come back, they carry stories. He unfolds them, and each origami bird has some story imprinted on it. So those books are like the collections of such stories, and that's it. I suppose that's enough for showing my works here. I really don't want to bore you to death, so I will very fast make this screen share of my workshop. I suppose we still have some time. Screen share. Yes, one more time here. Bam. If it's not moving, let me know. If it is, then I'm happy, but it's not essential. Yeah, pop culture, comic books, masks from all around the world. Those are things that inspires me. So there's a lot of them in my workshop, next to the comic books on the shelves and clean canvases waiting to be painted on. The masks are mostly from Africa and from Asia. Some I bought, some I brought myself. Okay, yeah, that's the place where I work. Some canvases on the walls waiting to be painted on. Next, how my paints look like, a bit different than my parents. Here they are. There's a lot of colors. The idea is that in each basket should be a different gamma or tone of colors. Of course, like 2 minutes after I have cleaned it all, they started mixing again, and once a month I need to make a general cleaning because I have no idea where is what color, and it really frustrates me, but I cannot help myself and just remember to put them back where they should be. Varnish, that's quite interesting. So here it is. In this bottle by the wonderful Amsterdam company is this liquid that we need to mix a bit, then clean the brush in turpentine because it won't clean in water. Water doesn't dissolve the varnish, so we need turpentine to this, or very strong alcohol, but then alcohol can react bad with the paint on the painting, so I don't recommend it. I've done it once and then I had to repaint some places at the painting. So yeah, basically it's like a transparent liquid shield glass, whatever you can paint. You can put on a painting that not only boosts the color but also protects the painting very, very well. So after putting a varnish, you can do almost anything. Like your kid puts some tomato soup on the painting, no problem, just take warm cloth and clean it. Nothing will happen. I experienced this firsthand some months ago, so yeah, it's quite safe afterwards. What I haven't shown you is a sketchbook. I do sketch, not as much as I want to, but it helps a lot because you will be able to see there are some paintings that were first sketched and afterwards the painting was done almost exactly like I had prepared it in the sketch. It helps a lot because without it, when you make a sketch, then your time at the early stage of painting it decreases like tenfold. When you don't need to think about the composition and where to put which aspects, so it would fit on the canvas. It can be a chore, but when you prepare it in a sketchbook first, then just look at the sketchbook and transfer. We don't use any kind of projector, neither my parents nor I, so it's all by hand, but still it helps a lot. Yeah, here are like sketches for the new book, and sometimes the sketch can be as small and insignificant as like this. For example, here is a sketch for the tiger painting I was varnishing like a few minutes ago. Yeah, that's the one. So the sketch doesn't need to be very precise. Sometimes few lines are enough. And yep, how I paint. It's gonna be here. So I have this GoPro camera on my forehead, and that's why it's gonna be a bit shaky. Sorry for that. As you can see, this is something I borrow from my mother technique. At first, there's a bit of abstract background that later helps me to paint the rest. I don't do it exactly the way like my mom, like I don't leave so big chunks of the background on the painting, but here it's gonna be like a nighttime cityscape, and thanks to putting this yellow paint right now, I had easier time with getting the starlit sky effect later on. I will pause it right now, and I suppose just stop this screen sharing because that's all I wanted to show you. The only thing I wanted to show you afterwards this painting was this, like this painting here on the right. That's what finally emerged from the painting you've seen a moment before I was painting. So maybe not a lot was left, but trust me, some of those stars and some of those glowing animal shapes in the sky, they were painted thanks to the fact that I had this yellow glowing paint put at the beginning. So I suppose that concludes what I had to say. I hope I didn't bore you all to death, and that it was quite interesting for you because well, 3 artists during one meeting can be overwhelming, but I think that we you know, our art, our world, our inspiration, that it works pretty well together, both in the aspects that we share and the one we differ. So if you have any questions right now, I would be happy to answer them.
It's Carolyn. That was an excellent presentation. Super, just fascinating. I think everyone's learned a lot from you and from your parents. We didn't have any questions come through chat, but like Roch said, I think we could open it up now. If there's any questions or comments, please just make yourself visible on your video and unmute. Lee?
I have a question. I would like to acquire those comic books. How can I do that?
With comic books, it can be a problem as they have been printed. You know, comic book business in Poland is quite rough. So the usual volume of copies is up to 1,000 copies, and after some time, they're just not available anymore. Although my books, they are still possible to be acquired. In the first book, there is this comic I have showed you because, yeah, it's here like the prologue, the introduction to the rest of the book. So this can be bought well online, you know, like. Probably even eBay, because eBay has everything, but I know that the Polish publishing houses and bookshops and the internet for sure has it. Although, you know, it's in Polish. As for the prints, because I see a question here, my parents, they don't do prints. I do. There are 2 ways of acquiring a print with my paintings. There's one company in the United States. It's called iCanvas, with just, you know, letter I in the front of canvas. It's like a website where you can order a picture they have in their portfolio to be printed on canvas, on paper, and then even framed, whatever. I'm not sure about the quality of the reproduction. I allowed them to do it. We have a signed agreement, but I haven't seen it with my eyes, so I cannot vouch for the quality of the color and the overall reproduction. In Poland, there is one company that does reproductions I can vouch 100% for, and it's called Fine Art Prints, just like that. We have limited series of prints up to 50. They are all signed by myself with numbers and my name and surname. And the quality is really exquisite. Like it's printed on the papers they use for the museum reproductions of fine art prints with up to, I suppose, some horrendous 200 or 300 years of guaranteed color accuracy, some crazy pigments. This is something I can tell you where to get my prints. As I told you, my parents, unfortunately, they don't do it yet, anyway.
Okay, and I just found online your puzzles through ECRU, ECRU Puzzles. So that's another venue. Maybe we can get some of your work, at least to get it closer to us. Very good.
The company is called Artifact Puzzles.
Yeah.
It's actually quite amazing because the owner of the company, the lady that owns this company that doing puzzles, it's her free-time hobby, part-time job, because full-time job, she's like a chef of machine learning division in Google. So she's like a almost Nobel Prize tier scientist that loves puzzles, and she does puzzles like this. So yeah, I got few of them, and the quality is great, and they're funny because they are like three-dimensional. They are cut with laser from wood, so it's a bit like a jigsaw, not only a puzzle. It's quite satisfying to play with them.
Yeah, there's another American company, Liberty Puzzles. Liberty. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but that might be a very good company to get with because they do very different designs of their puzzles pieces. They're all custom one time, and they also make sure there is one special character. So maybe your whale or something like that. And people collect those. I mean, they're a lot of money. They're very, I'll send you an email with their information, but
Great. Thank you very much.
I love puzzles, and those are very fascinating puzzles, and they like very unique pictures. So interesting.
I would appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions from the audience or comments?
This is Casey. I did actually just search on Amazon, and both of the Papernick books are on Amazon. Of course, the description of them is in Polish, but you can still buy them and have them shipped, I guess.
More or less, that's what I told you about. There are stories. The first book is unfortunately not edited very well. It was my first cooperation with the publishing company that did it, and they also didn't have too much experience. So feel warned. They are pages like this in a book with stories for children. Like it's horrendous, it's terrible. I'm hoping that we will eventually make the second edition of this book, and then we will just fix it. But the other one, which was done with some professional editor, it's much more nice to read, and it's generally better. But all of them, I would love you to be able to read it, but right now we sold the rights to this book to Russia, so the first foreign translation will be in Russian, and I hope one day maybe someone will make an English print, and then I will let you know.
Okay, very good. Any other questions at this time or comments? Well, thank you again, Roch, for sharing your family's art and stories. Please extend our gratitude to your parents as well. I think you found many new admirers of your work here in Tennessee. And as a follow-up, I want to encourage everyone to look back to the program pages of our website, where there are links to the Urbaniak websites and email addresses. And as always, please feel free to forward and provide your feedback about our meeting programs. We're always looking for improvement and different art mediums to share. Our next meeting is March 18th, featuring local artist and AGTV member, Lori Savaji. Lori will help us to up our game with graphite. she will take us on a creative journey and share what has helped her most to develop as an artist. The March meeting announcement is posted at our website, and an email to membership will be sent next week. So again, thank you so much, Roch. It was absolutely delightful. Everything went really well. It came off beautifully. I think you have a lot of very happy fans, and hopefully, I think you're going to sell a little bit more art to some Americans. So again, I hope you have a great day, and thank you everyone for your attendance, and we'll see you in March. And Roch, maybe we'll have you back someday with some new paintings, since you can make them in 2 weeks.
Thank you. It was
The
very interesting.
itinerary is quite dense right now, but maybe one day, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. It was an honor to be able to make this presentation for you all, and I hope you all have a great day. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.